Good evening and welcome to the 4-3-4 defense. My name is Deuce Prince. I'm a Charlottesville, Virginia native, lifelong UVA football fan, and former college offensive lineman. And ladies and gentlemen, we are well and truly into the offseason now. The transfer portal's opening and closing, that whole process, it ran so close to the college football season that it really didn't even feel like the offseason in any particular sense. There are still guys that are out in the portal. There are still moves that are going to be made, still potential moves by the University of Virginia that are to be made, but this feels a little bit more like the actual offseason. And right in step with that, we finally got our schedule for the 2026 football season. And I hate prognostication and predictions and some of that clickbaity content that you see, the way too early 2026 top 25 rankings that have Virginia Tech at number 17, like on 3. What on earth are you smoking? And can I have some? I don't think it's legal in Florida. But, it is a good time to just kind of take a look over and just kind of see what the year is going to look like. And what the year looks like is a really nice stretch at the end of the year with a lot of home games. And so, right off the bat, August 29th in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, we're playing NC State. We're opening up the season with a conference game. Neutral site game. It is in another hemisphere. It's in another continent, depending on who you ask, whether North America and South America are two different continents. You might get different answers if you go to the game in Brazil. But an NC State team that I thought was better than their record reflected last year. CJ Bailey is obviously outstanding at the quarterback position. Quite a few coaches that we as Virginia fans know are fairly quality coaches, such as Garrett Tujay, their offensive line coach. I think they're going to be a very solid football team again. The big question with Dave Doran and NC State has been, can they take that next step? They've got the quarterback in place. They've got some other great pieces on the roster in place. Can they vault from that 8-win plateau that they've been in recently and get into that 10-11 win strata now? Up next, Norfolk State. Norfolk State, obviously we are paying Norfolk State to come over to Scott Stadium and play on Saturday, September 12th. It is what it is. I played at the Citadel. I've been that school. I know that whole situation. Do not take this game lightly. Norfolk State is going to have a ton of kids from the Commonwealth of Virginia. They're going to want to show out. They're going to want to put some great film on display. If you're an FCS guy and you are playing a school like Virginia, who just had an 11-win season and was a game away from the college football playoff, and you're at Norfolk State and you're thinking, I really want to go to that Power 5 level. I think I'm good enough. The best film that you can have is against the Virginia Cavaliers. And this is also a bit of a homecoming for a former and lifelong Virginia Cavalier. Elton Brown, Big E, is the offensive line coach at Norfolk State. Obviously an outstanding offensive lineman for the University of Virginia in the early 2000s with a very successful pro career after going to the Super Bowl with the Arizona Cardinals, and a really long and successful coaching tenure at the collegiate level in the 757 in the Virginia Beach area. If you don't know, he spent the last couple of years as the offensive coordinator at the apprentice school in the 757 area. It's a really interesting school where they essentially apprentice you to become a shipbuilder, and they pay you to go to school there. They got NIL before NIL. He's now made the move up to Norfolk State to coach at the Division I level. I'm super happy for now Coach Brown, Coach Big E. Obviously, an outstanding guy, an outstanding Virginia Cavalier. I think Virginia has a pretty solid chance in that game, but you never know. They're going to show their best stuff, so Virginia cannot sleep into that game. West Virginia in Charlotte, North Carolina, September 19th. This is going to be a weird game, y'all. I have a hard time getting a firm feeling. Obviously, Rich Rodriguez back in Morgantown after kind of a sojourn to Ann Arbor, to Jacksonville, Alabama, to a couple places in between. He's kind of been all over the map, and he kind of had to try and hit the reset button in 2025 with the West Virginia Mountaineers. Rich Rodriguez is a coach. I will never doubt their ability to put a competitive football team on the field. Obviously, one of the great offensive minds in football over the last 20 years. Rich Rod has done a great job at a lot of different places, most notably in West Virginia, so he's back there. I will need to see how West Virginia plays the first 2 weeks of the season to really have a good gauge on how this game is going to go, because I could see it going a million different ways. Then we go back home to play at Scott Stadium against the Delaware Blue Hens. My brother James played at Delaware for most of his undergraduate career, loved it. I love Newark. Newark's a great town, got all the love in the world for the Blue Hens. Hopefully the Cavaliers carry the day. No disrespect to all the wonderful Blue Hen folks out there. But, Delaware is a quality program. Their coach, Ryan Carty, I think is a very good football coach. They've got a very competitive roster that did really well in Conference USA. I'm going to spend this list talking up our opponents just so you can kind of get a feel for what they do well. So don't think think we're just going up against a murderer's row. We're not going to win a game. But Delaware does what they do very, very well. They've got a good football team, a good coaching staff, and shoot, I wouldn't doubt that the Delaware fans are going to travel pretty well for that game. It's not a terrible drive from Newark, Delaware, over to Charlottesville. Then, first true road test of the year. We've got 2 neutral sites and 2 home games in the first 4 games of the season. Then we go down to Doak Campbell Stadium in Tallahassee, Florida. I will be there for the Virginia-Florida State game. Obviously, for one of the more underrated trophy games in terms of sheer moments in the Atlantic Coast Conference, the Jefferson Epps Trophy. Obviously, Virginia produced, I would say, the moment of the 2025 season in college football. It was the moment, basically, until Fernando Mendoza ran in that amazing quarterback draw and, extended the ball out over the goal line. The Virginia field rush last year against Florida State, that was the moment of the 2025 college football season. I will cede that to Mendoza for the overall, since it was in the national title game. But, I'm hoping to go and see the Cavaliers go into Tallahassee and come out of this game with another win. Florida State's in a really odd spot right now in terms of where they're at. They're kind of in a, I don't want to say lame duck situation at head coach, because Mike Norvell is a very good football coach, but does anyone really think in their right mind that this is the long-term solution and thinks that this is going to well and truly work? Remains to be determined. Then we go back home to play Syracuse. Syracuse had a ghastly 2025 season. 2-10, lost a bunch of quarterbacks. They were playing true freshmen that were recruited to Syracuse to play lacrosse in conference play. They just had an awful year. Fran Brown is one of the best coaches we will face all year. One of the best. Fran Brown is an outstanding football coach. If Tony Elliott ever were to get a bigger job away from the University of Virginia, say if Clemson came calling and Dabo hung up the whistle and we were looking for a new head coach, Fran Brown's one of the first calls I would want to make. Obviously, Anthony Poindexter, Marcus Hagan, some of the alums we'd have to give a call to, and I don't want to speak into existence Tony Elliott leaving Virginia, but Fran Brown is that quality of coach where I would feel very comfortable if he was coaching my team. And so if I'm a Syracuse fan, I feel pretty good about Syracuse going into 2026. Do I think they're going to win 10 games? No. I think they're going to be the most annoying 4-7 team to play in the country. They're going to win 4 games, and the 7 losses are going to just be knife fights, rock'em sock'em robots for the 7 teams that beat Syracuse, because they get a little bit healthy. They make some new additions over the offseason. I think they're going to be overall fine. Then we go to a venue that I don't believe Virginia has ever played at. I could be totally wrong here, but we go out to the Dallas Metroplex to play at Gerald Ford Stadium against the SMU Mustangs. This is a team that has been consistently one of the best teams in the conference since they've joined. SMU has been consistently competitive. They have obviously put their money where their mouths are. Unsurprisingly, things are bigger in Texas, including the NIL budgets. They've done an outstanding job in this new modern era of football. And so I think SMU is going to be a very tough game going to Dallas to play in that new stadium. I think they'll have a very good team again. And I think this SMU game is going to be a really pivotal test for Virginia in 2026, because there is a reality where we go into this game 6-0. We could conceivably go 6-0. There are no 1927 Yankees on the early part of the schedule. They're not bad football teams, but they are not like 2019 LSU. We go to Dallas 6-0, 5-1, even 4-2, and we clear that hump against SMU. I think we got a really good shot. if we can go up against that SMU team and come out of Dallas with a win. Obviously, the travel is hellacious. Not as bad as going out to Cal or Stanford, but it's still a significant change in time zones. It's still a significant change in schedule and routine. You're flying for a really long time. It will be an interesting test for us. Then we come back home to play Duke. Obviously Cooper Barkate and Darian Mensah are now down chilling in South Beach at Miami for their attempted reload for a national title push. Darian Mensah, I thought, was the most talented quarterback we played all year. I thought he was easily the most talented quarterback, and I thought he executed things really well. They had an awful game against us in the regular season, but you could see by the time of the ACC championship, they had kind of righted the ship, and they had a very, very good football team there. And things got ugly with Mensah and Duke at the very end with his attempt to leave in the portal for Miami. And so I trust Manny Diaz as a good football coach, and that's about all I can go off of right now. I don't know what Duke in 2026 is going to be. Then we play Wake Forest in Winston-Salem. Wake Forest obviously handed us a really frustrating and annoying loss in 2025. Chandler Morris got hurt in that game, even with Daniel Kalen in, and we were a little bit limited through the air. We had every opportunity to win that game. We had a really bad punt coverage that led into a touchdown for Wake that was kind of the deciding play of the game. Jake Dickert is an outstanding coach. Wake Forest does have to fight with one arm tied behind their backs from an alumni base and an NIL standpoint, but they've done very good business in the portal. They've got a very good coaching staff. They've got a decent roster. Going to Winston-Salem, as any longtime Virginia fan knows, is just a weird place to play a football game sometimes. It's got kind of like something in the water that just makes for kooky football games. So obviously, we're going to have to go out and take care of business, even if we are the more talented team against Wake Forest, because Winston-Salem is just a weird place to play. Then a game that I am super excited for. We got a bye week, and then November 14th, we host the Cal Golden Bears. JKS, their quarterback, is outstanding. He is one of my favorite quarterbacks to watch in the country on a week-in, week-out basis. I'm biased because he's a lefty, and as Ned Flanders said, Lord love a lefty, but he's outstanding. Last year, playing as a freshman, you could see that there were some hiccups in how he processed things and how he viewed things, how he made reads and how things were handled, but nothing that would indicate that it was more than just a freshman trying to adjust to Power 4 football. But when JKS is on, look out. Like, one of the most talented quarterbacks in the country, has a live arm. Coming in with Tosh Lapoy, new head coach there at Cal. They've got a lot of energy. Their fan base is excited right now. As we all know, Cal has an amazing fan base, and they are going to show up. at least on Twitter, and they're going to give that Cal team some juice. New head coach, JKS back in the saddle at Berkeley. They're going to be a very good football team. I do not doubt that they're going to have at least a winning record by the time they come to Charlottesville, and hopefully some of the fine folks over in the Calgoritham can enjoy some Bodo's bagels and be converted to the way, the truth, and the life that is Bodo's bagels. Then we play the South's oldest rivalry in the 11th game of the year against North Carolina, the Charcuterie Bowl, as I like to call it. This game is finally, for the first time in what feels like forever, on the correct week of the schedule. The ACC, in an attempt, I think, to spread out the rivalry games and to kind of keep Week 5 interesting and add some rivalry juice, or Week 6 or Week 4, has thrown the South's oldest rivalry on a weird week for the past couple of years. This game is, although it's not the Commonwealth Clash, it is a very important rivalry. And if you talk to Virginia fans, talk to your dad, talk to your grandpa, talk to your uncle, if they're of a certain age before Virginia Tech joined the ACC, a lot of people will tell you that this is the game. There are a lot of people who are like, you know what, the South's oldest rivalry, that's the game that we look forward to. That's the game that we want to win. That if we go 1-11 and we beat UNC, that's a great year. I'm glad this is the 11th game of the schedule. We get a 1-2 punch of good rivalry football. Bill Belichick, obviously coming off of the Pro Football Hall of Fame snub, is looking to kind of figure out what UNC football under Bill Belichick is. Last year was filled with a ton of distractions, a ton of bad football, a ton of mental errors, and it's just not enough to overcome how soft of a football program that is. You know, if you thought you were getting one thing with Bill Belichick, it was going to be disciplined football with limited distractions. And that is probably the only thing that can help save a team that's as consistently soft as UNC. And they got the exact opposite. I almost felt bad for them at certain points. Like how many weeks could they go where Pablo Torre had a new episode about the dumb shit that was happening with UNC football every single week, and it made them a worse football team. They started to improve down the line, and granted, we got out by the skin of our teeth in just a weird, bizarre football game. Their edge play far exceeded what they did all year against Virginia. So, look, I don't like UNC. I want to beat the heck out of the Tar Heels every single year. And, you know, if we don't approach this the right way, this game the right way, UNC could be in a position where, hey, they might be fighting for a bowl game. They could very well be at 5-5 heading into the 11th game of the year. Let's not be the team that gives them bowl eligibility. Let's not do it. Let's go into Scott Stadium, in our home stadium, and just go and just beat the hell out of the Heels and just send them back crying and just finish the job. And then obviously last game of the year, the Commonwealth Clash. This is going to be a very, very interesting game depending on if Virginia is able to follow up on 2025 and if Virginia Tech can cash the checks that they have been writing with their mouths. And this is not me saying that they can. I think they absolutely can. James Franklin is a good football coach. They brought in a good staff. I actually thought retaining Brent Pry was an excellent move from just an objective football standpoint. Granted, I hate the Tar Heels way more than I hate the Hokies. I know a lot more Hokies that I like than Tar Heels. But, this is a game that is going to be massive for Virginia Tech. They're having it at Lane Stadium. It'll be James Franklin's first time against the University of Virginia as a Virginia Tech head coach. There's going to be a lot of expectations placed on this game, especially from the Virginia Tech crowd. And right now, if Virginia doesn't approach this the right way, they could enter that game into thinking, man, I just want to keep the Commonwealth Cup. I just don't want to not lose. Whereas we should be going into this game, and I think Tony Elliott's going to prepare the team in a way that we're going to go into this game with the attitude of we are going to win this game. We are going to go and we're going to seize the moment, because hopefully that is a game that could send us to, who knows, maybe 11 wins again. Could absolutely send us to 10, 9, 8. Like, wherever we shake out in this thing, this game is going to be massively important on the schedule, obviously, not just for the sentimentality purposes of it, but I think this game will have a big part to do in where we end up at the end of the 2025 season. That's the schedule. I don't have a record prediction. I don't have a game-by-game prediction yet. I want to see spring ball. I want to see where everything shakes out roster-wise. We still have a whole incoming class of freshmen that have enrolled and will be participating in spring ball, as well as those that will be enrolling over the summer. And we'll only get a first glimpse of them in a Virginia uniform until fall camp. So there's so much that has to happen. Obviously, Bo Pribula's got to learn a new offensive system. It's not terribly different. Drink and Des Kitchings have been together at various stops, so it's not like learning a completely new system. It's not like going from Jeff Monken over at Army to Mike Leach at Texas Tech. Like, it's not a huge difference, but spring ball is the time to rattle out and iron out all of the things that Bo needs to learn at the quarterback position. Obviously, we'll still need to see what Eli Holstein brings at the quarterback position. Same thing with the young guys that we have at quarterback that are coming in, and those that have stayed. Peyton Lewis in the running game, Jaquil Middlebrooks, like Noah Vaughn, Xavier Brown, like these guys are all going to be different players than they were in 2025, and so we'll just need to analyze where things are. So no record prediction yet. It was a incredibly quiet offseason again for Virginia when it came to the coaching staff. This has been one of the most consistent coaching staffs in all of Division I football. Tony Elliott came over, assembled a staff, and in a move that now looks really great in 2025, has stuck by his guys, even when things haven't necessarily gone well. Believed the vision, believed in what program Tony Elliott was building, and what the coaches and the players were all building, and stuck by them. And really, we haven't seen a lot of turnover. And we saw our first turnover, and I got to admit, this is a huge one for Virginia with how big of a impact the offensive line had in 2025. Offensive line coach Terry Heffernan took the offensive coordinator role at Stanford with Tavita Pritchard's new staff that him and Andrew Luck are building over in Palo Alto. Heffernan, I believe, has been at Stanford in the past. He's familiar with the area. When you have such a dominant year for your position group, like Terry Heffernan had with the Virginia offensive line, I can't be mad at the guy if someone comes on and says, hey, we think you can be a great offensive coordinator, because I believe he will be. I believe he'll be a very good offensive coordinator at Stanford. I believe he's going to do a great job. An offensive line coach being the offensive coordinator at Stanford makes a ton of sense. There's a lot of synergy there with the type of football that Stanford has played when they've played well, and that's a very run-oriented, ground and pound style of offense like they ran with Jim Harbaugh. So, can't fault that. I think that's going to be a great move for Terry and his family. Hats off to him, and I wish him nothing but the best for sticking around and doing such a great job with the 2025 unit. Coming in, Joey Ork, or not even coming in, just more so being elevated up. Joey Ork was elevated from senior offensive analyst to offensive line coach. Joey has been with this position group since Tony Elliott took over at the University of Virginia. Ork came over from Presbyterian College, home of the Blue Hose, if you can believe that. Someone that played college football in South Carolina. Sometimes I still can't believe that they were called the Blue Hose, but you know what? You like it, I love it. Ork was an offensive coordinator at Presbyterian, did a great job there. They ran a really, really productive system at the FCS level. I thought they did some great work over there. And, being elevated to the offensive line coach position, this is a veteran group, a lot of fifth-year guys, a lot of even sixth-year guys, a lot of guys that are returning, years of eligibility at the University of Virginia. And so I think this was the right move to keep the voice consistent and to continue with a voice that understands this group, understands what makes them tick, understand how do I motivate Mikhail Boley versus Drake Metcalf? How do I coach Noah Josie versus Monroe Mills? How can I get the absolute most out of each of our guys? How can I get Ben York to take that next step? This is something that Joey York has been not only assisting, but visualizing and observing over the years with this Virginia football program. And I can't tell you how important that is as an offensive line coach. We are a often weirdly particular group of people in the offensive line room. And it takes a couple of months if you're new to get involved and get synchronized with the idiosyncrasies of an offensive line room. And so with Coach Ork, none of that initial awkwardness and none of that feeling out necessarily is going to take place. It's just going to be Coach Ork sliding into a role that he has done before. At Presbyterian College, he started as an offensive line coach. And so he's had a position room before. Obviously not at the Power 4 level, obviously not with this level of success. But offensive linemen are very similar no matter what level of college or the pros that you're playing at. The money changes, the ages change, how many kids you have might change. But trust me, at the core, a lot of offensive line rooms can be very, very similar in how you have to approach them and that you have to get to know the offensive linemen. And so Coach Ork, I thought getting promoted to the offensive line coach position was an awesome move. Represents, I think, a lot of continued faith and continuity in the program that Tony Elliott is building at Virginia. Not feeling like we have to go out and get someone with a big name. We don't have to go out and get someone who doesn't know our system, doesn't know our culture. We just know he's generally a good line coach, and we're just going to kind of roll with that. You hire those analyst roles, you hire those assistant roles, you hire those GAs with the idea in mind that you want to know if this is someone that could elevate within your building. And so, obviously, Coach Ork has put that on display with regard to Coach Elliott. And so, it seems like this was a fairly simple process. I'm sure some other guys got interviewed for the role, but I can't imagine that Joey Ork wasn't the front runner at a very early stage in this new hiring process. And so once again, shout out to Coach Heffernan, did an awesome job with this group. And, I think he timed his exit very well in that the offensive line group stuck together. I don't know if this was intentional or just how the hiring cycle worked, but if Coach Heffernan decided not to leave for Stanford until he knew that this group was going to stick together, if he knew that, build him a statue because that is an all-time awesome and classy move by Coach Heffernan to stay on and make sure that this group stayed consistent. There hasn't been a ton of activity in the transfer portal since our last episode. We had one guy, God, was it Mathis? Yeah, Mathis going to Texas Tech. And then for the most part, it's been fairly consistent transfer portal-wise from our last recap episode on the portal. I think the main focus right now and things that I'm seeing and things that I'm reading is that the Virginia staff is really trying to hit the 2027 recruiting class hard. Just picked up another edge commit, picking up some 4-stars, picking up some 3-stars. And in just the things you read and the commentary that's provided from the interviews with a lot of these athletes, it's clear that not just in the minds of Virginia fans has something changed. It's clear in the minds of these recruits too. They saw 2025. They saw what Coach Elliott was able to build at the University of Virginia in just 4 years and the trajectory of the program, which is going to continue to rise and rise. And it becomes very easy to look at that and say, I want to be a part of that. I would like to be in that room. I want to be at a university that's going to prepare me for life. Hopefully, if you stay all 4 years and you graduate, Coach Elliott, who's going to encourage you to be a better man and to grow into a young man that your family is going to be proud of. I think that's a very big part of Coach Elliott's recruiting pitch, that he's going to do right by these guys. And not only does Tony Elliott say that, he's walked the walk, especially after 2022 with everything that happened. Coach Elliott stuck by his guys and really guided the program through something that could have very easily set back this football program for a decade plus if the right person wasn't in charge. And so, if you are a agent, or if you are a parent, or if you're an athlete, you're seeing what's going on at the University of Virginia. You're seeing that these are good people who not only want to, but care about and plan to win football games. I was talking with one of the parents after the Gator Bowl, and I kind of brought up, it seems like Tony Elliott has figured out how to adapt the Dabo Swinney Clemson model to the modern age. And they couldn't agree more. Dabo has obviously been very reticent to enter the transfer portal world, to go into player acquisition through the portal, and you can see that he is grumpy as hell about it with all the tampering that's going on. Whereas Tony Elliott has kept the core principles of personal development, of developing good young men, getting people to graduate, playing good football without some of the personal reservations that I think have really hindered Clemson football in the past couple of years. So, I think that this is a indication that we're headed in the right direction. We're continuing to head in the right direction. As January comes to a close and we get ready to head into February, we're starting to get into baseball season. Rocking my Tampa Bay Rays hat. I live just a few minutes away from the Tampa Bay Rays spring training facility. I'm going to be doing some baseball content for Streaking the Lawn over in the spring. Virginia plays a couple of games up near Orlando in DeLand against Stetson, as well as a couple other schools, so I'll be out covering that. So stay tuned on Streaking the Lawn, SB Nation, for all of that content, because it's going to be really fun. We've got a bunch of really, really awesome interviews lined up here for the 434 Defense channel in February. Can't touch on every single one of them just yet, but we're still working out all the logistics of getting two people, often who live in different places, sometimes even 4 people who live in different places, to be free and available at the same time. But man, when those episodes drop, that is going to be a lot of fun. I'm having a lot of fun making these interviews and making these videos. So if you've made it this far, it's clear that you love UVA football and you enjoy what we do here at the 434 Defense. And I just want to say from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Drop down in the comments below who you think is going to be the most interesting game of the 2026 season, the game that you're going to in the 2026 season. And man, have a great night and go Hoos.